Hi, you're listening to WUSB Stony Brook, 90.1 FM and 107.3 FM. This is a very special live performance on WUSB Live on Grad Radio Hour, which is a partnership between Stony Brook Radio and the Graduate Student Organization here at Stony Brook. I'm here with Garrett, with Natasha, with Omkar, and Sam, and we're really excited to have Maya Lorenzen on the phone with us. I'm going to bring her up on the fader. Maya, are you there?
I am there.
Okay,
here.
Great. I'm going to pass off the mic to Garrett, and he has a couple of questions for you.
Good. Okay, thank you.
Maya.
Hey, Garrett.
Hey, how are you doing?
I am good. How are you doing? It's so nice to hear your voice.
I know, it's been forever. I think the only time I've seen you so far this semester was Stony Brook Orchestra, Zoom session.
Right. Yeah.
Miles and miles away.
That's totally right. Yeah.
Well, so I have a few questions for you just so that our listeners can kind of get a sense of who you are and what you'll be doing today. So can you just kind of give us some information about you, like who you are, what year you are, the program that you're in, what you play?
Sure. So my name is Maya. I am a violinist. I started my DMA, which is doctoral in musical arts, in violin performance at Stony Brook University about 4.5 years ago. Wow, that's a very long time. I'm wrong. 3.5 years ago.
Because we came in at the same time, I think. I started with the master's. Yeah, that makes sense. Right. 3.5 years, yeah.
Yeah. Because it's always like fourth year, but not fourth. I'm fourth year, but it hasn't been like full 4 years yet.
Right.
It's confusing. Anyway, so 3.5 years ago, I'm about to graduate probably next year.
Awesome.
And very exciting. And I am originally from Israel, and I moved to New York after living in Germany for a few years.
Right.
New York is so far the only place in the States that I've lived in. So and has been my home for the past few years, and I'm really happy to be here. It's been fun.
We're so happy to have you. And so it's interesting. So you were living in Germany, and correct me if I'm wrong, you were studying with Haggai over in Germany?
No, I studied with him. He was my teacher at in Israel, in Tel Aviv, which is where I did my undergrad.
I see. So he kind of was he your connection to coming to Stony Brook then?
Actually, no. It's a really funny story because I met Philip Setzer of the Emerson Quartet when the quartet was performing in Hamburg, which is the city I lived in. And I listened to a concert, which was just phenomenal, and I played for him, and then he told me about this program at Stony Brook, this postgraduate program, and I started looking up the details and who else teaches there, and surprisingly found out that my previous teacher is there too. So he wasn't originally my connection, but it definitely strengthened my will or my determination to make this move. And it's been super interesting to have lessons with him again after so many years, and kind of like closing a circle, So,
yeah. Oh my gosh, what a coincidence.
Yeah, it's super funny. It's such a small world. Like,
Seriously.
I mean, you know, in general, and the music world is just tiny, tiny, tiny.
Right.
So yeah, in a way, like, you know, I moved so far away from where I used to live, but it made it more familiar in a way, like.
Oh, definitely.
So, yeah.
Cool. So what I'm always interested in, and I think something that our listeners might be interested in as well, is kind of hearing from our musical guests how you've been spending your quarantine since so many of our performances have been canceled, and just kind of what projects you've been up to with either Stony Brook or outside of Stony Brook, like whatever you've been up to.
Yeah. So, you know, it's been so long, in a way, since COVID hit, like back in March. It kind of feels like we settled, or at least I feel like I settled into this, like, new reality. But yeah, I've been teaching a lot. You know, I have 12 students at the moment, and I'm super happy and grateful and thankful that they all are so you know, into it and so cooperative with learning online, which is not easy.
Right.
And so I've been teaching them this whole time, and you know, I'm trying to give them as much value as possible outside of the actual, you know, violin lesson, because it's not the same. And
of course,
yeah. And other than that, well, Stony Brook has been keeping us pretty busy, as you know.
Yes.
We have a lot of projects with, you know, the orchestra and some chamber music and the CCCP, which is the contemporary chamber. I'm missing a C.
Contemporary chamber players. There it is.
Yes, thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, just a bunch of different recordings and lectures and seminars and stuff like that. That I, you know, am very thankful and grateful that for all of our teachers and professors to, you know, for being so creative and coming up with all these interesting and engaging.
Oh, definitely. I found, at least for me, it's been really helpful, like with orchestra doing the mock audition and the other, like, found that helped. One, I mean, I'm not sure where you want to go with your career, but it was really helpful for me to just like brush up on those excerpts and just kind of keep everything in check for hopefully when this ends, so that we can go out and continue to audition.
Yeah.
So I totally agree. It's been great having these projects. Before we let you play your program for us, can you tell us a little bit about it and maybe like why you chose these pieces or?
Yeah. So I have a program that I'm really excited about, not just because the works are individually just really beautiful and close to my heart, but also because they come, I find, so well together. And so the first piece that I'm going to play was written by the New Yorker composer and violinist Jesse Montgomery. Well, she wrote a set of 6 rhapsodies, all for different solo instruments, in homage to the tradition of Bach's solo violin sonatas and partitas and the cello suite, as well as the solo works for violin by Isaïe. And then, so I'll be playing the first of these 6 rhapsodies. And what's really cool about this set is that the last rhapsody is written for all the instruments that played the first 5. So
cool.
It could be a really cool concert to play all 6 of them. Like to have like something I want to do.
Yeah.
And then the second piece is written by the American composer Missy Mazzoli, who lives in New York, but I'm not sure if she's in New York as well. Anyway, yeah, that's another piece inspired by Bach, specifically the D minor partita, which will be the last piece of this program. So it's kind of all wrapped around Bach's D minor partita, which is one of the greatest masterpieces ever written for any instrument, and two works that are inspired by it. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I'm really excited to hear it, and I think it's great that you were able to kind of tie all of these pieces together with Bach. That's really great. I think it'll be really awesome for our listeners to kind of hear the thread through all of them. So I'm gonna let you get set up. I'm gonna pass it back over to Rob just to make sure that we're all set to go. But we're really looking forward to hearing you play. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited. I really hope that you enjoy this program.
Yeah, thank you so much to Garrett for that great interview and really interesting and kind of riveting conversation with Maya. We're looking so much forward to this live performance. Again, if you just tuned in, this is WUSB Live on Grad Radio Hour. And this is on WUSB Stony Brook, of course, your local Stony Brook radio station. Maya, I'm actually going to ask you to change your scene right now. That's kind of a back end thing, but that our listeners won't understand. But I'm going to have you do that. We're going to go to some messages, and then we'll have Maya on live on the radio. Very excited for this. Thanks, Maya.
Me too. Thank you. Bye-bye.
When you purchase the latest TV, tablet, or smartphone, don't forget to do the right thing with your old ones. Recycle them. The Consumer Electronics Association and its members are making recycling your old devices as easy as buying new ones. Just go to greenergadgets.org, type in your zip code, and you'll instantly find the recycling location closest to your home. You'll also find...
you're good.
Okay, you are listening to WUSB Stony Brook, and this is Captain Phil Merkel here, invading the Graduate Music Hour with guitarist Yuri Liverson from California. But let's go around the room over in Stony Brook and do introductions, guys.
Sure. So we kind of have a whole crew with us here today. My name is Garrett Brown. I'm the productions director with the GSO. And so, like I said, we have a whole bunch of people here with us. We have some newbies with us. So let's go around the room, guys.
Get a little bit closer to the mic.
Right over here. What's going on, guys? My name is Sam. I am the new graduate student coordinator of student media here, and I am part of the higher education administration program.
I'm Natasha Nelson. I'm in the Department of Music. I'm majoring in voice, and I'm one of the new graduate coordinators for student media as well.
I'm Rob Cosgrove. I've been at the station for 3.5 years. Some of you may know me. I am the outgoing graduate coordinator for student media.
Hey, I'm Omkar. I'm just here to hang out, help these guys out with stuff. But nice to see you.
I'm Chuck Briscoe. I'm one of the graduate students in public policy.
And that's all of us.
And we're all musicians.
All musicians.
And maybe half of us are pretty familiar with Bach's music, so this is great.
So we're going to go ahead and we're going to play. Yuri's interpretation of Bach's Sonata in A minor, third movement, the Andante. And then we're going to talk to Yuri ourselves. Actually, you know what, Yuri, you're sitting here very patiently, so let's let you introduce yourself to our listeners, and give us your contact information as our listeners are tuning in. Where can they find your music on the World Wide Web, Yuri?
Oh, of course. Oh, well, hello everybody. Thank you very much for having me, and very nice to meet you all. I'm a classical guitarist. I live in the Bay Area, California, kind of right in the middle of Silicon Valley. Very odd place for a musician, but nevertheless, I like it here. The weather is really nice. It was much nicer before COVID that we could all be outside, but it's everywhere right now. So I play classical guitar, and I teach and I perform. And I went to Peabody Conservatory, and then I went to Yale School of Music, all for guitar. And I have a website if you would like to listen to some of my music. It's very simple. It's yurigitaraltogether.com. So
Excellent. And we're gonna go ahead and play that first track, and then we're gonna come back with Yuri live on the air here on WUSB Stony Brook. This is Yuri's interpretation of the Bach violin sonatas, and here we go. And we are back here at WUSB Stony Brook from the album Three Violin Sonatas, J.S. Bach. That was guitarist Yuri Liberzon, his third album. Yuri, tell me a little bit about the track I just played.
So this is Andante from the A minor sonata, which is the second violin sonata that Bach wrote. Out of the context is that he wrote three sonatas and three partitas. So I recorded three sonatas, and that's about a little over an hour of music. And what can I tell you about the Andante? It's a slower movement. Andante literally means walking, and what's so beautiful about this movement is the melodic lines, the brilliance that Bach, it's just the perfect architecture of that piece. It starts with a major third interval, and then it takes off, and the voices have their own life, and it's really hard to describe with words what this music is about, but it's very spiritual. It's very deep, emotional. I would not call this movement virtuosic in the sense of speed, but it's very virtuosic in terms of sustaining all the voices and adding vibrato and singing each individual line.
And I think it's important that our listeners and people understand that the voices, the actual notes you're playing on the guitar, is a beautiful way to describe them when you're playing them and fingering them on the fretboard, that they are singing, that they're individuals, and instead of you're just like a lot of the bands we play here on the station, the guitarist is strumming or they have like the screaming electric solo and all that stuff, but you basically have sort of like a quartet going on there in some respect, right?
Well, Segovia called it once, Andres Segovia, the famous guitarist. He said, guitar is a small orchestra.
Beautiful. I always found Bach as a retired music teacher, and as my piano was my major, but I reached a level of mediocrity in my own playing because of 31 years of public school education where I was working. So I became satisfied with that because it was a good gig, but I always found the work of Bach, when I attempted it, to be very claustrophobic to me, to play as a musician. I translate that claustrophobia into the idea of Bach existing on the neck of a guitar, which in and of itself is a small space. I mean, is that how you see it? It seems like you're so free, and looking at pictures of you playing and your fingers moving over the fretboard, but does it feel like you're in this small enclosed space when you're playing it?
I just want to make sure I understand your question well.
I just felt like the actual playing, playing a Bach sonata or a prelude and fugue, it was always seemed to be a very small place, and not a place, when I was playing it, to stretch out in. And I feel like the guitar itself, it's very, it's like a limited place. It's 6 strings,
Well, I think it's even smaller on the violin. I think the movements are so tiny.
True.
The neck is so short, and the intonation is just incredibly difficult. I think we have it easy on the guitar. We got frets.
You know what? I think I'm coming from this at my angle of looking at the keyboard, and I have like this vast 88 key landscape to exist in. And when I've played the guitar on occasion, I've always found it to be hard for me to fit. It's difficult to fit. Interesting. So, did you adjust? These are all adapted. And who was the transcribed? These are all transcribed by, let me see if I say his name right, by Manuel Barucho. Did I say that right? Barueco. Did you make any changes? Is this totally his version, or did you adjust it? And if so, how?
So I wish I could show you my score because it's full of marking. It's all red. So I would not say that I adjusted many notes, but there were some. Maybe some voicings that were too difficult or I didn't think that worked for me. But I would say most of the notes were as he transcribed it. I really think he did an amazing job with this, with these sonatas, transcribing them. Because I have transcribed Bach before. Like, for example, when I recorded the D minor sonata, I did my own transcription. But this was just so good that I did not want to mess with that. Well, a lot of changes had to do with fingerings and with adding interpretational notes for myself. But most of the notes were kept as he intended them. As Manuel intended. By the way, Manuel was my teacher at the Peabody.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I find it kind of interesting too that I wish, in a lot of ways, that this is an impossibility, but I wish Bach could be brought into our present to hear his work in these the way things are played today. I'm not sure how he would process it, because it must be a completely different sound to the way things sounded back in his time. Do you ever try to get into Bach's head and try to make things the way they were for him back in his day?
To some extent. When I was working on these sonatas, I definitely was mindful of, am I doing something that Bach would not do? I really tried to be true to what he intended it to sound like. Of course, if I were to truly do it, the way that he intended, I would probably play it on either a lute or actually want to play the violin, but I don't think it's in the cards for me. So I played the guitar.
How about some questions from our graduate students over at SUNY Stony Brook? I can see you there in control room number 2. Things are looking great. I miss that place so much due to the pandemic, but those of you who are listening on the air right now, all our grad students are socially distanced and they're masked. And Yuri is by himself in California, and he's fine. And I'm by myself in my basement, and I'm fine. So go ahead.
Following all the precautions. Yeah. Well, while that last track was playing, I was talking a little bit to Yuri about transcriptions and how that kind of plays a role in Bach's music. Because Bach's music is so large and so, it's like pervasive. Like everyone wants to play it, I feel like. And every instrumentalist, I'm a percussionist by training, but we have some other, we have guitarists here, we have vocalists, we have bassoonists, saxophonists, and I think there's been transcriptions of Bach's music for all of those different, music written and transcriptions written for all of those instruments. So I'm just wondering, Yuri, you had some thoughts about, the kind of the transformation from the violin to the guitar, and also like how that kind of expands the sonic capabilities and stuff.
Yeah, let me just say a few things about that, because as guitarists, we play lots of Bach's music. For example, we play his cello suites, we play his lute suites, we play violin sonatas and partitas. Also, a lot of piano works. Even his well-tempered clavier has been arranged for 2 guitars, not for 1 but for 2. So guitar has this beautiful combination of plucked sound, kind of like a harpsichord, as well as it does sustain a little bit. So I really think it works really great on guitar. Some people even say it's probably the best thing that we have on the guitar. And the beauty of Bach's music is that it can be transcribed and it really works well on any instrument. It's really not about the instrument. It's somehow able to sound great on anything. Like, I've seen people play on some random things like on the street, and it still sounds amazing. You can recognize it, and he was an amazing instrumentalist. It's beyond the instrument. His music is just beyond the instrument. So yeah, I'm just very lucky to be able to touch on his works on the guitar. And guitar is just an instrument that I chose and that I love. But yeah, his music sounds great on anything, if it's played well, of course.
Do you think that there's any like particular qualities of these pieces that you are bringing out more or less because of like the timbre of your instrument, for example? Like,
well, guitar for me is more of a lyrical instrument. It has always felt that way. It's not a very loud instrument. It's an intimate instrument designed to play at a smaller room. Unless you're amplified, it's hard to hear you in a very large hall. So it has that intimate sense, which kind of goes along with what Bach intended for the solo. Well, they're called the solo violin works, for one instrument, unaccompanied violin, and that was rather unusual for Bach to write in for such an instrumentation, just one instrument, because most of his works are either choral or for chamber music, or so this was a very intimate, unusual work for him. So I think on the guitar, what I try to do is I do try to make it sound very intimate. Even my approach to the recording was to have the microphones very close by, so that it really captures the moment and all the details. Even though it was recorded at a church, it still sounds very intimate. So yeah. I don't know. I do love it on guitar. I think it's beautiful tone with beautiful music. Can't go wrong with that.
Yeah, I love that kind of the experience being part of the, like, how was this experienced at the time, for example? Like, were people in a large hall or were they close to the performer? That is kind of, I feel like you're expanding the listener's kind of experience, for lack of a better word, by paying attention to those details and kind of like staying true to the function that this music was playing in back in the day. And like, for those of the listeners who don't know, chamber music is called chamber music because it literally happened in a room. It didn't happen in a hall. The function was for people to get together and spend time with each other through making music in their living rooms or their salons. Or
yeah, actually, that idea is actually coming back. Like, for example, with group muse.
Yes, yeah.
Having little salons, like little gatherings. Mm-hmm. Of course, that stopped recently.
Virtual rooms, Zoom rooms.
Well, hopefully, it will go back once things get back to normal.
Very interesting, though. Yeah, should we listen to another track, Bill, or I don't know?
Let's keep the conversation going.
Okay.
And why don't you get another student?
Does anyone else
to the mic? And while you're doing that, I want to remind everybody who's listening that you are listening to WUSB Stony Brook, and we're on the Zoom phone with Yuri Liberzon. Am I pronouncing it right, Yuri?
Exactly correct.
Oh, thank you so much. And you can get his music at www.yuriguitar.com. That's Y-U-R-A, the word guitar.com. And of course...
Oh, it's Y-U-R-I, I'm sorry.
Y-U-R-I, sorry, yep. See, I had to make a mistake there somewhere. And these tracks will be also listed on our playlist along with the URLs later on today. So if you're driving on the Long Island Expressway and you're enjoying what you're hearing here, you can follow through, because we are in a pandemic and Yuri is not performing in chambers or anywhere else. And a lot of musicians could use the support. And the holidays are here. I believe today is the first day of Hanukkah. Christmas is coming, so show the musicians some love, and follow through if you are enjoying this as well. Yuri has 3 albums out, and if you go on his website, there's some Christmas albums as well. Go ahead, Rob, back in the studio.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I have another question, actually, and this is maybe an easy question, maybe a difficult question, but obviously Bach's works have been played so much over the years, last hundreds and hundreds of years. And obviously people keep on coming back to it, you know, because it seems like it's so timeless, and it speaks to, you know, young people to old people. But I'm just curious, why Bach now? Like, why would you release an album of something that people know so well, and what do you think that you're bringing to it that's new?
That's a really great question, and I really had to think about that and feel that before I committed to making this album. So the reason why I really got into guitar was because of Bach. My main teacher in Israel was so inspiring, and one of the biggest things that inspired me was actually him playing Bach for me during our lessons sometimes. And it grabbed me right away. I remember just going into the basement of it's an apartment building, but I would go downstairs and there's an open space, and it had really, really great acoustics. And I would spend hours and hours just working on Bach. And that's where it all started. So I started to love Bach's music. And then when I was admitted to the Peabody Conservatory, and I got full scholarship, and basically the whole thing happened, and I moved to the US, and one of the first things that I was working with my teacher was the G minor of the first violin sonata. And my teacher also has an album that he recorded of the same thing, 3 violin sonatas. And that was just, I thought that was the most incredible thing. And I was just hoping that one day I would be able to be brave enough and to have enough understanding of Bach's music to play some of it. And then I was like, well, why not? Let's do all of it. So why now? Because I felt ready for it. I felt that I could say something with it. I had my own vision of it. I did not try to copy anybody. I simply went with what I grew up with, whatever influences I had on me, whatever my taste was. So it's more of a expression of my vision of Bach's music. And Bach is always relevant at any time. Even if he lived today, he would probably write jazz music, because he was an amazing improviser. He pretty much all of his music is improvisation. If you look at his slow movements in the sonatas, for example, Adagio, Grave, Largo, all those slow movements, they all sound like they're just improvisations. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Keith Jarrett, famous jazz pianist. He is the jazz musician of today, maybe a little older generation, but he kind of does this similar thing. He travels the world with he prepares some material and then he improvises on it live. But that's even more crazy, right? Going live in front of an audience and creating something, and you don't really know how it's gonna go. So I think Bach has a bit of that. I approach Bach a little bit with that sense. Not that I have to hit everything exactly how I plan, even though I do have a plan, but I do have that moment of spontaneity in my playing, and finding that right balance is really tricky and fun. And sometimes sometimes it works. So, sometimes
Yuri,
you come up with things.
Yuri, you have a Keith Jarrett track on your first album, Ascension.
Yes.
So on that, follow through a little bit on that. Tell us a little bit about that, and because you chimed in on Jarrett here.
Well, that's from his Cologne concert. So he went to Germany, and he improvised this amazing piece, and it's available. It was like the bestseller for a few years, I think. It hit all the charts and everything. It was incredible. I don't know if you guys heard the news, but unfortunately Keith Jarrett cannot play anymore. I think he had some health issues.
No, I didn't hear that. That's terrible. No.
Yeah, he just recently. And actually, there was a story that I heard recently about the whole Cone concert recording. He actually was about to cancel his performance because he felt that the piano just wasn't right. And the reason why he even agreed to do it, because some German girl, I think she was 16 or 17, she approached him and she really begged him to come and play in Germany. And right before the concert, he just got into his car and he was about to leave, and she really begged him to play. And he said, well, only for you, I'm going to do that. And then it became like his biggest hit. So I thought it was a great story.
That's kind of an amazing story. I had not heard that. I mean, this track exists on the Ascension CD, and it's an eclectic. It's back to back with Bach, Scarlatti, and
this was my programming.
Yeah, so
goes along with what I said earlier.
That's really, really cool, and Lennon and McCartney as well.
Well, that's a bit different, but
Rob, any other questions for the students over at CR2?
I just want to make a comment. The violinist I was playing before, Maya Lorenzen, she is also from Israel. I didn't make that connection. Cool. But maybe someone for a future collaboration or something like that. But, that's great. Two people from Israel playing Bach on the WUSB. That's great. I think we should listen to maybe some more music.
Do you, Yuri, do you mind sitting through another track? It'll be about, I have like a 5-minute track queued up. Do you have the time?
Yeah, I do. Would you like to, do you want to pick yourself, or do you want me to suggest?
If you have something specific, it'll take me a second to bring it up, but go ahead.
Tell
me which track you... Go ahead.
Presto. It's track number 4.
Track number 4, that would be the Presto?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm loading it up right now, and while I'm loading it up, I want to remind everybody again that you are listening to WUSB Stony Brook, 90.1 FM, and W297BM Stony Brook, 107.3. And we're going to put up, I just need to fade this down here. This is what happens when you're working on a computer. So we're going to bring this up right now. And here is another track from Yuri's latest album here on WUSB Stony Brook. That is Yuri Lieberson here on WUSB Stony Brook from the Three Violin Sonatas album, and that was Sonata in G minor, movement 4, Presto. And we are back on the air with Yuri. You can find his work at yuriguitar.com, and you can find his work right now on the airwaves of WUSB Stony Brook. Hope everyone's having a great day today and enjoying this trip into the past and the future as the 17th century and the 21st century exist side by side here on WUSB Stony Brook. Let's kick it back to Yuri and CR2 over at WUSB, guys.
So maybe we can kind of talk about what we were just talking about to the listeners. So I'm a bassoonist, and I recently recorded Bach's Second Cello Suite in D minor for a recital. And so I was noting how on bassoon, we don't have the capabilities of the cello in terms of double stop. So we have to be kind of creative with how we do that. And so it's not something that's super or always idiomatic on the instrument. And so my question for Yuri was to see if there were similar instances in the transcriptions of his Bach.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Because guitar has 6 strings and violin has 4 strings, often notes have to be added or subtracted just based on comfort. Sometimes fingers simply cannot reach, so a lot of changes have to be considered. Also, there are different instruments. The tuning is different, so certain chords and harmonies will sound better. Certain fingerings will sound better. So you really have to know the instrument in order to transcribe for it. I think fingerings are extremely important because they really change the interpretation. They affect the interpretation, on the guitar at least. They're very important. Yeah, but even on piano, I mean, fingerings are important. Sometimes they can give you speed, sometimes they can give you different articulation. But on guitar, they're critical.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit more about that? And for maybe people who don't know, like why different fingerings would change the sound?
Yeah, well, for example, let's say you have a couple notes on the same string, and let's say you only use one finger. And you go 1, 2, 3. That's going to have a certain articulation. What if you use 3 fingers to do the same thing? It's going to sound more connected, for example, right? Because you can kind of overlap the notes a little bit or have less of a gap in between the notes. Because if you do one finger, you have to lift, you have to play, lift, and then move, right? So that creates a little bit of a gap. So things like that. Sometimes you can slide a finger, sometimes you can use a guide finger to create that connection.
What's a guide finger?
So, for example, if you're moving from one chord to another chord, if you're able to keep the same finger, that's desirable because you have a more secure shift.
Sure.
You always maintain a contact with a string, rather than lifting your hand and kind of trying to land precisely.
Mm-hmm.
So that always helps. It basically makes the shifts easier and left-hand movements a little more coordinated.
I see.
Mm-hmm.
Yuri, I found the string noise. It like when you're shifting your hand on the neck of the guitar and it has that little. Are those things part of this conversation here? And are those ever planned out? Because I'm so used to them, I feel like they're part of the music, but they're also part of the whole guitar experience as well. So is that something you plan out and like, or is it just
that's
things
another
that happen?
great question right there. Because I'll give you a little bit of background. When I was about 16 years old, one of the people I played for was a violinist, and the first thing he says, "What is that squeaking? Like, why can't you get rid of it?" And I was like, "Well, let me try." And yeah, I improved on that. I was lifting my fingers better. But I do think they're part of the instrument. They're part of the aesthetic. I don't know if you guys are familiar with music notation software. Probably are, of course, you're music majors. So like Finale or Sibelius, when you actually play guitar, when you play a score and using the guitar as the instrument, it actually adds those squeaks for you.
Oh.
Yeah. So whoever did
I
that-
don't know how I feel about that, Yuri.
So that gives me comfort in this. But I'll tell you a little more. I've tried to use different things. I've tried to put different oils on the pads of my fingers. For example, I've discovered that you can put it's like a lamp oil. You know, like one of those oil lamps. So I got a whole box of that oil. I've tried that. I've tried different lubricants. Nothing you can really do to completely get rid of it other than carefully lifting your fingers and miking the guitar a certain way. What I find that people do often is they mic the guitar rather far away. I did not do that because I wanted a more intimate setting. So yes, it does squeak a little bit more, but you also gain that sense of being present right there. So yeah, it's give and take.
As a non-guitarist and a non-bassoonist, I find it part of the performance, and I expect it. But it seems ludicrous that a computer software program would insert it. I find it odd. And I think it's a sign of a human being, making something, real and putting it out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I've looked into manually removing those squeaks using software, and many recordings do that. But what happens is, whenever you try to manipulate the wave, you actually distort the sound a little bit. So you always lose something. And I've tried that, but I decided against it. I wanted to be more of a purist experience.
I love it the way it is. And a quick question, and a quick question for me, and then we'll go back to our students. I read somewhere that when a classical CD is created, a symphony or quartet, what have you, when it's recorded, they go back and they fix it. And if there's something that happens, it's not just start to finish recording and that's it. They actually go in and tweak it as if it would be like a rock band, laying down the drums first and then the guitar and whatever. Was this record, this CD that you created here, a straight-through recording, or did you tweak it? Did you go in and say, third measure, second page, I don't like that, I have to change that?
I would say that pretty much all recordings these days are edited. And yes, mine is edited. I know some people edit every second. Others edit, like a whole section. If you are a perfectionist, it's really difficult to just play from beginning to an end and say, oh, that's it. I think some jazz musicians used to do that, but classical musicians don't do that. They do edit. The approach is basically creating the best work you possibly can. Like a painting, you really go back there and you fix this and that. But it still has to feel as if it's a live performance, a playthrough. It still has to make sense. So I guess that's what I wanted to say about that.
It's interesting. Rob, any more questions from Stony Brook?
We have one over here.
Yeah,
Sam has one.
So again, as they're getting into place, this is Yuri Libertson, and you're listening to the three Bach Sonatas CD on WUSB Stony Brook. Okay, guys, go ahead.
How you doing, Yuri?
I'm good.
Awesome. So before we were talking about how this music is so timeless, and I assume you listen to other music besides Bach. Do you find that one of the reasons because it's so timeless is because the amount of other artists or musicians that have had influence from Bach. I mean, like you can take Queen. You know, they had such an operatic feel to it in some of their music. So do you find that that's a reason for it? And would you have, you know, any artist off the top of your head that has gotten a lot of influence from
Well, there's an expression, and people say that Bach is the father of music. So what he did, he basically summarized all the rules that were before him, and he combined them and put them in his music. So his music is quite strict. Not that he does not break his own rules, but it's mostly following the rules of theory rules. Well, of course, theory comes after the music is written. So theory is analysis of music. It's not the other way around. It's not like the theory is created and then you... Unless it's a 12-tone music, where you have a limitation, and you work with that limitation. Or minimalism.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah, well, the reason... I mean, yes, I think Bach's influence in all of music. I mean, his use of sequence, his contrapuntal, you know, the voicing, the way he... Many techniques that he used are used in everything. Like a lot of pop music, a lot of rock music, like metal. Actually, take metal.
Yeah.
It's heavily influenced by Bach.
Right.
So, you know, Bach was actually not popular during his lifetime. He was known, but he was not as well known as he is today. And Mendelssohn was the one who brought him back.
Is this a true story? I don't remember this from my music history classes from 500 years ago when I was in college. Was Bach's sheet music being used to wrap fish in a market? Is that a true story? Because I can't remember if that was true
It's
or not.
the Chaconne, right? It's the famous last movement of the D minor partita for the violin. I heard that story.
Astonishing. Amazing. We are about 8 minutes away from news, but we are still listening to Yuri here on WUSB Stony Brook. Any quick questions back at Stony Brook, guys, before we start to transition to news?
Yeah, we have one from Natasha.
All right, here she comes, and this is Natasha, Yuri, and yeah, go ahead, Natasha.
Hi, Yuri. You had mentioned the positioning of the microphone closer versus farther away that contributes to a certain intimacy to the sound. Are there any other facets of the sound that you take into account when recording Bach versus other repertoire, or any other facets that come into play in your interpretation of his music in particular?
Well, regarding the first part of the sound, choice of microphones, I think for Bach, I really try to go with capturing the way the guitar sounds, or the way the room sounds at the time, rather than choosing a microphone that will add a little bit of color. So I go with a very pure sounding microphone. And the second part, I'm sorry, could you repeat your question one more time?
Sure. I was just curious to know if, with regard to recording Bach specifically, just speaking about actually recording, are there any facets that come into play that you take into account for recording his music in particular that might be different from if you're recording other styles of music, for example? Or are there any facets of music that come into play when you're approaching recording Bach versus playing in a live hall, for example?
I'm trying to put my thoughts together.
So, like recording Bach versus other composers or other genres, and then also recording versus performing Bach, and are there differences in kind of...
Well, I think performing Bach is definitely more risk-taking rather than recording. But not exactly, actually. Sometimes I would, during recording, I would still take risks and see maybe something amazing happens. Sometimes that happens too. I think tone is very important to me. I think capturing the most beautiful tone, especially on recording, is important. Producing a good tone. Unfortunately, I am not the engineer when I'm recording myself, so it's difficult to hear exactly what you sound like, because sometimes what you sound like on stage is not exactly what's being captured. So you have to have a good engineer who thinks alike. And for this recording, and for all three actually, I've used the same engineer, so he already knows what I like. And by the way, we recorded it in Pacific Grove. It's here in California. It's at a church, and we got keys to the church, so we would go there for the weekend, and we would record one sonata at a time. So about 2 days per sonata. It's not like I'm able to play all three sonatas in one night and be done with it. No, it was a process that took actually close to 2 years, including all the editing, all the cover design, everything.
Any differences in times of day? Were you recording at night, different from recording in the sometime?
I always recorded at night because there was a bit of traffic outside, and I like to be that nobody can call me, nobody can bother me. It's completely quiet, and I prefer the evening hours. But we actually recorded at night, so starting at around 8 o'clock and finished around 2 a.m.
So if the listener wants the pure experience, they should begin the CD at 8 o'clock p.m.?
Only start playing it around 8 p.m.
We have about 4 minutes left, guys. Any last questions left over from Stony Brook?
I think that's pretty much it. It's been a very interesting conversation. So thank you so much for being here, Yuri. Yeah.
And thanks for having me, Phil, as well.
Oh, thank you so much for staying for the whole hour. I usually don't run this long, and I think this has been a real treat to have to collaborate with Rob Cosgrove as well. Usually I work with him. I would see him, and we would hang out and talk music and this and that. And we've been separated, due to the pandemic, and this has been a tremendous opportunity to work with him again and to bring you in on something I think that he's eminently more qualified to discuss than me. And it's been a pleasure hearing I'm calling them the kids. I know they're all young adults, but I'm 58 years old, and you're all kids to me. So and I'm just so.
Say one.
Go ahead, Yuri.
Say one thing about this recording is that. Even for people who are familiar with these works for the violin, I think hearing them on guitar will give them fresh life and give them fresh ideas. I think it's a good thing. And during this time when some people are going through hardships, I think nothing better than Bach's music can do that. That can soothe and elevate someone's mood.
It generally, I've been since they've sent me your CD, since Crossover sent me the CD, I've been programming it in on Tuesday mornings, here and there, for a pre-recorded fill-in show that I've been doing. And I imagine it's nice to wake up at 6 a.m. to something contemplative, reflective, and even tempered, and really peaceful, if you are heading out to work and you're an essential person, and you need to go out there in this unsure area. And I think it's good. It is very calming, and I could feel my heartbeat slowing as I listen to it. It puts you into that state, that calming state. So well done. It's been an incredible hour, guys. I really appreciate it. I want to give out the URLs one last time as I toggle back over here to that, and that is Yuri Liberzun and 3 Violin Sonatas by Johann Sebastian Bach. You can find all of Yuri's music at the URL yuriguitar.com. There are 3 albums out. We never talked about the second album, so maybe we'll have to have you back. at some point with the tango etudes. And that's kind of interesting that you had Bach there at the beginning in your first album, this.